at Bill Smith's house in St. Andrews, New Brunswick. Bill was the impetus behind the St. Andrews Tax Reduction Network. Bill, what made you think about creating a network to focus attention on property tax issues here in our town?
Well, I realize that death and taxes are inevitable. I've never really liked the idea of either one of them, but property tax to me is the worst because it can't be avoided.
What do you mean by that?
Well, look at the HST, for example. If you don't buy anything, you don't pay any tax, so you can avoid it.
But people like to buy stuff.
Oh, sure they do, and they still will. But I guess the point is that if you're at the sort of thin end of the financial ability scale, there's exemptions and so on, and there's exemptions for food. So it's really discretionary things that hit the hardest with the tax.
What about income tax?
Well, income tax, there's another tax that you can actually manage. The more you make, the more you pay. So, in a way, it's not really as bad as some tax that threatens your property.
Back to property tax, Bill. Let's focus.
Okay, I get carried away. Well, the point is that I think everybody has an age-old fear of being taxed out of their property, forced off their land, lose their farm, and all that because of taxes that they can't afford to pay. That makes it a kind of a real core issue to people, and it also makes it a good tax from the taxing authorities' point of view because they've kind of got you where it matters, and we know where you live, sort of thing, and you can't move your property, so you're at risk.
What got you going at this time?
The specific trigger was several friends who are summer residents here, and they emailed me to complain about unbelievable increases in their tax bills. They were talking about having to consider selling their properties, and it got me looking into it. And the more research I did, the more concern I developed about the future of our town. It's not hard to understand that if a number of people dump their properties on the market, that prices will go down, and eventually so will the tax base. And then town management would have to either cut costs or increase the tax rate. Now, either way, the town would be less attractive to people who might settle here, and there'd be a kind of general spiral towards mediocrity. I want to live in the St. Andrews that we moved to 10 years ago. It was welcoming, it was vibrant, and I wanted to stay that way.
Generally, what has created this issue now?
The trigger seems to have been a reassessment of all the properties in St. Andrews, and that led to a number of people who had not been reviewed for some time to have major increases in their tax assessment. Properties defined as permanent residents, the principal residences, I guess is what I'm trying to say, have what the province calls spike protection, which limits the assessment increase to 10% in any given year. But this safety valve is not available to people who are just summer residents. So when I got into the research on this, I found that New Brunswick has a double taxation system for businesses and non-residents. And this adds greatly to the impact with, I'll just check this now, but businesses being exposed to a total tax rate of about 3.7%, and non-residents about 2.5%, as compared to people with principal residences who get a rate of 1.1%. So the differences are quite striking. And maybe if we use an example of applying it to an assessment, we could kind of get a bigger impact of what it is. So if we took an assessment of $300,000 for a given property, whether it was a business property or a residence property, the resident would see a bill for about $3,300, the non-resident about $7,500, and the business a little over $11,000.
Wow, that's quite a spread.
Sure is, and much higher than the case in Nova Scotia. In Chester, for example, a resort town about an hour's drive from Halifax, the comparable figures would be about $2,000 for a resident, about $2,000 for a non-resident, because they don't have a dual dual tax system there, and about $5,000 for a business.
So our taxes discourage summer residents and businesses from establishing here or improving their properties if they are already here?
Afraid so. Yeah, looks that way to me.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Bill.
Thank you, Patrick.
Hey,